Dog's cry leads officer to secret lab in the woods. The early morning mist wrapped the trees in a soft white blanket as Officer Caleb Rourke drove his old green pickup down the quiet forest road. Birds hadn't begun to sing yet. Everything felt still, too still. Then, out of nowhere, a tiny golden puppy stumbled into the road. Caleb hit the brakes and his tire squealed. The truck jerked to a stop just a few feet away. The little dog froze, its wide brown eyes locked on Caleb. It let out a sharp, broken whimper, almost like it was crying. "Hey, buddy," Caleb said gently, opening his door and stepping out. "You okay?" The puppy took one shaky step forward, then collapsed onto the damp gravel. Its ears drooped, and its whole body shivered. Caleb knelt down, careful not to scare it. "You're all right now," he said softly. He reached out slowly, and the puppy weakly crawled toward his hand. Caleb scooped it up into his arms, cradling it close to his chest. Its golden fur was matted and dirty. Its ribs showed beneath its skin, and it was freezing. "Poor thing," Caleb whispered. "Where did you come from?" That's when he noticed the collar. It was a soft brown leather band, thin and worn, with a shiny silver tag dangling from it. Caleb flipped the tag over, expecting to see a phone number or address. But instead, one single word was engraved in neat curly letters: "Help." His stomach turned. What in the world? He looked around, scanning the quiet road and the thick woods beyond. There were no houses nearby, no hikers, no other cars. Just him, the trees, and this scared little pup with a tag begging for help. He didn't know what was going on, but his gut told him this wasn't a lost pet story. Something was very wrong. Caleb rushed the puppy back to the ranger station. The building was small and cozy, with a big porch and faded green paint. Inside, Sienna Vale, his partner and forest tech specialist, sat behind a desk, eating a banana and reading emails on her laptop. Her eyes widened when she saw him storm in. "Are we rescuing puppies now?" she asked, trying to joke. But when she saw Caleb's face, she stood up quickly. "This little guy ran into the road like he was looking for someone," Caleb said, laying the puppy gently on a blanket by the desk. "He's scared out of his mind. And look at this." He handed her the collar. Sienna turned it over and read the tag. "Help," she said, frowning. "It's creepy. No address, no chip?" "Nope. Nothing," Caleb said. "And he doesn't look like he's been out here long. No ticks, no mud on his paws." Sienna knelt beside the puppy, who flinched at first but slowly leaned into her hand as she gently stroked his head. "He's terrified," she whispered. Caleb opened his laptop and started searching for any local reports. Missing dogs, break-ins, anything strange? Maybe someone used the dog to leave a message. Sienna gave the puppy a few bits of chicken from her lunch and poured a bowl of water. The puppy sniffed it, then began to eat, still shaking. "We should call him something," she said softly. "Like what?" She looked at the puppy's large, round eyes. "Echo, feels right, like he's trying to say something no one's listening to." Caleb nodded, typing faster. "Echo it is," but there were no missing dog reports, no strange activity, nothing that explained a crying puppy with a warning around its neck. Caleb sighed and rubbed his eyes. "I've got nothing, no hits. It's like he came out of nowhere." Sienna tilted her head and picked up the collar again. Her fingers traced the inside. "Wait," she said. "Look at this. Inside the leather, it's stitched. Barely noticeable." Caleb leaned over. There, tucked in the inner seam, was a string of letters and numbers. It almost looked decorative, but something about it stood out. "Coordinates?" Caleb guessed. "Let me check," Sienna said, pulling out her phone. She typed the numbers into her GPS app, then stared at the screen. 15 miles from here, middle of nowhere, in the old conservation land near Halden's forest. Caleb sat up straighter. "Anything out there?" Sienna shook her head. "Just trees, maybe an old cabin or two from before the land was protected. No roads go there directly anymore." He looked at the tiny pup, curled on the blanket. "Whoever left that collar wanted someone to find that spot," Caleb said. Echo whimpered softly, pressing his nose into the blanket. "Let's go," Caleb said. "If someone out there's hurting animals, we need to find out." The dirt road toward Halden's forest was rough and narrow. Pine trees towered on both sides, their shadows long and silent. Sienna sat beside Caleb, holding Echo gently in her lap. The puppy was calmer now, but still let out little whines now and then. Caleb kept glancing at the GPS. "We're close." They stopped where the road ended and got out. Just ahead, hidden in the trees, was a small cabin. The roof sagged, and the windows were boarded up, but smoke rose faintly from a metal pipe sticking out the back. "Stay here with Echo," Caleb told Sienna. "I'm coming with—" "No," he said firmly. "I need you to keep him safe. If there's trouble, he doesn't need to be near it." Sienna hesitated, then nodded. Caleb approached the cabin slowly, hand resting on the grip of the flashlight hooked to his belt. He knocked. No answer. He tried the door. It creaked open. Inside, it was dim and musty. Dust danced in the light from a cracked window. A table sat in the middle of the room. On it, an old wooden box, half open. He walked over. Inside the box were photos, dozens of them. Dogs, some scruffy, some wearing collars. One looked just like Echo. Underneath, a folded note in neat handwriting. "They're watching. Protect them." Caleb's heart thudded. He grabbed the box and hurried back outside. Sienna stood, alert, Echo tucked under her arm. "Found something," Caleb said. He showed her the box. Sienna's eyes scanned the photos. These aren't random strays. They're being tracked. Studied, watched. Echo let out a sudden bark, his ears perked, body trembling again. Caleb turned toward the forest beyond the cabin. "There's more out there," he said, his voice low. They loaded into the truck. Caleb gripped the wheel tight, driving deeper into the trees. Whatever this was, it wasn't over, and Echo wasn't just a lost puppy anymore. He was a message, and they were listening. Caleb's truck rattled over the uneven trail, deeper into the trees. The old tires crunched branches and dry leaves as the cabin disappeared behind them. Sienna sat quietly, holding Echo close to her chest. The little puppy was alert now, his ears twitching and his soft body warm against her coat. "What do you think it means?" she asked. "That note." "They're watching. Protect them." "Who's watching? And who?" "I don't know," Caleb said, gripping the wheel, "but I have a feeling we're in the middle of something big." After a long silence, Sienna said, "It doesn't feel like just dogs anymore." They reached a clearing where the trees opened up and Caleb parked the truck. It was quiet. No birds, no animals, just wind rustling the tall grass. Caleb stepped out, looking around. That's when he noticed it. A set of tire tracks. Not old, not covered in leaves. Fresh. Someone had been here, recently. And then they heard it. A bark. Not Echo, deeper, stronger. Caleb followed the sound into the woods, flashlight in hand. Sienna stayed close behind with Echo. The barking grew louder, but slower, weaker, like it was running out of strength. They found the dog behind a fallen log, a German shepherd, thin but strong-looking, huddled in the shadows. One of its back legs was swollen. It looked up with bright amber eyes. "Oh no," Sienna whispered. "He's hurt." The shepherd growled, softly at first, but stopped when Echo gave a little whine. The two dogs locked eyes. Then the shepherd rested its head on the ground and let Caleb approach. "Easy, boy," Caleb said gently. The shepherd wore a black collar with a strange blinking piece attached to it, almost like a tiny light or track. "This looks like tech," Caleb said, leaning closer. "Some kind of device." He gently lifted the dog and carried him back to the truck. "We'll name him," Sienna paused, looking at the proud, calm dog, "Zephyr." "Zephyr?" Caleb asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, like the wind, strong, quiet, moves through the trees," she said with a small smile. "He kind of feels like that." Caleb nodded. "All right, Zephyr." Back at the station, Sienna hooked the blinking collar device to her laptop. "It's not just a tracker," she said after a few minutes. "It's recording audio, maybe even a video." Caleb stood behind her, arms crossed. "You mean someone's using the collar to spy?" She nodded slowly. "There are files, they're encrypted, but I can tell it's been tracking locations across multiple states. Not just here." Echo sat by Zephyr, who was resting on a blanket. Even hurt, Zephyr seemed alert, like a guard watching over something precious. The two dogs didn't act like strangers. They acted like teammates. Then Caleb's phone buzzed. Blocked number. He hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice came through. "You have them," she said calmly. "Echo, Zephyr, I've been trying to get them out for weeks. I'm glad they found you." Caleb's body tensed. "Who is this?" "My name is Evelyn Hayes," she said. "I can explain everything, but not on the phone. Meet me tomorrow morning, alone. I'll text you the spot." The call ended. He looked at Sienna. "She knows their names." Sienna blinked. "You didn't tell anyone. She says she's been trying to help." Sienna stared at the dogs. "I think we should hear her out." The next morning, Caleb drove to the meeting spot, a hidden fire watchtower on the edge of the forest. A woman stood waiting, gray hair in a ponytail, wearing a thick jacket and boots. Her eyes were sharp and cautious. "I used to work for them," she said quietly when he arrived. "For who?" Caleb asked. "The group behind this. A company that claims to rescue and train animals for therapy and military use, but they do more than that." She handed Caleb a folder full of photos. Dogs in cages, wires hooked to their collars, strange symbols marked on crates. They're testing things. Brain stimulation, obedience chips, GPS synced with behavior. They think it'll save lives, but it's hurting animals, controlling them, like machines. Caleb flipped through the photos. His stomach turned. "I tried to stop them," Evelyn said. "They buried everything. I took what I could and left. I made the collars, help, hope, safe. I stitched the coordinates into the leather, hoping someone like you would follow the trail." Caleb looked up at her. "Why not go to the police?" She shook her head. "They have people everywhere, government contracts, donations. They'd erase me, erase everything." He frowned. "So what do you want from me?" "There's a transport coming tonight. A shipment of dogs. They're moving to a new testing facility. If we intercept it, we can rescue them, and I can get you proof." Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "I'm in." That night, Caleb and Sienna met Evelyn near an old logging road. 2 trucks from her team were parked nearby. A few others, quiet, serious-looking men and women, stood by, checking gear. "Remember," Evelyn said, "we don't fight unless we have to. We get the dogs out and collect whatever data we can." Echo sat beside Sienna, tail twitching nervously. Zephyr, now able to walk with a limp, stood near Caleb, alert. The headlights appeared, bright beams cutting through the trees. The transport truck was bigger than expected, metal walls. No logos, just cold steel. It rolled to a stop. Evelyn's team moved fast, blocking the road, signaling the driver. "Step out of the vehicle," she shouted. The driver climbed out slowly, his face unreadable. Caleb rushed to the back and opened the doors. Cages, dozens. Dogs packed in too tight, some whimpering. Others silent, staring. "Oh no," Sienna said, her voice cracking. Echo barked sharply and jumped toward the truck. Zephyr followed, standing at the door like a guard. Caleb climbed in and started opening cages. Then came the sound of footsteps in the dark. Masked men appeared from the trees. 5, maybe 6, armed with flashlights and batons. "You've made a mistake," one said coldly. "Back off." Evelyn stood tall. "We have the proof. It's over." But the men didn't back down. Tension filled the air, like fog. Caleb's hand hovered over his holster. Sienna kept Echo close. Zephyr growled, low and steady. Then, suddenly, sirens, bright lights cut through the trees as real police cars arrived. More officers jumped out, weapons drawn. The masked men froze. "Drop your weapons," an officer shouted. Slowly, the men raised their hands and dropped to their knees. Evelyn exhaled. Sienna looked at Caleb. "Did you call them?" He shook his head. "No, someone else did. They helped the dogs out one by one. Some limped, some collapsed in the grass. But they were free." Zephyr barked softly. Echo wagged his tail. Caleb bent down, rubbing Zephyr's neck. "You did good, boy," he said. "Real good." Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Love Tales of Tales, for long, heartwarming pets and animals. Love stories that stay with you long after they end. The next morning, the station was buzzing with noise and questions. Reporters waited outside. More officers had shown up, confused by the strange rescue. The dogs that were saved from the transport truck were now being treated by vets and volunteers, some of them still shook in fear, others curled up together, too weak to move. Caleb stood quietly near Zephyr and Echo. Zephyr's injured leg was wrapped now, and he walked slowly but with his head held high. Echo stayed close to his side like a shadow. Sienna sat at her desk, staring at the blinking collar device from Zephyr. She had finally cracked the encryption. Inside were audio files, recordings of conversations. She clicked play. A man's voice came through, cold and sharp. Subject 12 responded well to the neural collar. Next phase begins at the hidden site next week. Another voice joined. Keep the shipment quiet. If anyone leaks, we shut it all down. No evidence, no names. Sienna paused the audio and looked at Caleb. That voice, it's from someone important. Maybe the one in charge. Caleb's jaw tightened. They're hiding something. Something bigger than just one truck. He looked down at Zephyr, who stared back calmly. The blinking collar had also given GPS data. It showed Zephyr had been moved through 3 different states, from a private lab to an airfield, then to a remote part of the country. That final location, Caleb said, pointing to the map on the screen. What's there? Sienna zoomed in. Nothing official, but satellite view shows buildings, fenced in. Looks like a facility. Evelyn stepped in from the hallway. She had been on the phone all morning trying to reach people who might help. I know that place, she said softly. It's one of their testing sites. They call it the Ridge. It's off-record, hidden. I've only been there once. Caleb folded his arms. You think there are more animals there? I'm sure of it, Evelyn said. And data, too. The kind that could shut them down for good. Caleb looked at Sienna. She nodded. We need to go. They left that night. Caleb, Sienna, Evelyn, Zephyr, and Echo. They didn't tell anyone. They couldn't risk word getting out. The drive took hours. The roads grew smaller. Trees grew taller. At last, they parked near a forest edge. A wire fence stretched ahead, cutting through the woods. Inside it stood tall buildings with blinking red lights and a metal tower in the center. This is it, Evelyn whispered. They hid in the brush and watched the gates. One van entered every hour. No signs. No guards outside. Just cameras. We'll need to get inside without being seen, Caleb said. Evelyn pulled out an old keycard. I kept this from my last visit. It might still work. Sienna held Echo close, his small body tense. I don't like this, she said quietly. But we can't walk away now. They waited until a van drove in. As the gate closed behind it, they ran forward and slid through before it locked again. Inside, the lights were dim. The buildings looked empty, but Caleb could feel something wrong. It was too quiet. They moved quickly, staying low. One door had a key panel. Evelyn tapped her card. The lock clicked. Let's go, she whispered. Inside was a hallway full of metal doors. Behind one they heard barking, loud and scared. Caleb opened it. Rows of cages filled the room. Dogs of all sizes stared back at them with wide, terrified eyes. Many had collars with blinking lights, just like Zephyr's. Oh my gosh, Sienna breathed. There are dozens of them. Zephyr sniffed the air and patted down the row of cages. He stopped in front of one and let out a soft bark. Inside the cage was another German Shepherd, larger than Zephyr with bright amber eyes and a fresh scar on its ear. What is it? Caleb asked, crouching down. The dog inside pressed its nose to the bars. Around its neck was another device, but this one wasn't blinking. It was flashing red. Sienna gasped. That's not just a tracker. That's recording something live. Suddenly, a voice came from a speaker above them. So, you found your way here? The voice was calm, cold, familiar. Caleb stood slowly. It's him, he said, the one from the audio file. I hoped someone would follow the trail, the voice continued. But I didn't think you'd get this far. I must say, Officer Rourke, you've been impressive. Sienna backed away, holding Echo close. This facility is built on progress, the voice said. What we do here will save lives. Dogs are just the first step. But you cling to old ideas, emotion, rules. Caleb clenched his fists. You're hurting them. You're using them. We're improving them. Evelyn shouted at the ceiling. You said you wanted to help, but you're just turning animals into machines. There was a pause. You're not walking out of here, the voice said. We can't let our work be destroyed. A red light above the door turned on. A loud click echoed down the hallway. Lockdown, Evelyn said, her voice shaking. Then the power shifted. The humming lights buzzed, the cages flickered with electric locks. We're trapped, Sienna whispered. But Zephyr didn't freeze. He ran toward the back door, barking. Caleb followed. He knows something. They reached a side room, a control panel. Inside was a scared-looking technician. Don't shoot, the man yelled, raising his hands. We're not here to hurt you, Caleb said. Open the cages. Let the dogs out. Now. I can't, the man said. Only the master control room can do that. Then take us there, Caleb ordered. The man hesitated, then nodded. They ran. Alarms were starting now. Flashing lights. Echo whimpered in Sienna's arms, and she held him close. They reached the control room, a steel door with a keypad. The technician entered the code. It clicked open. Inside were monitors showing every part of the building. Caleb saw guards running. More labs. And his own team is trying to find them. He turned to the technician. Override the lockdown. I'll try, the man stammered. Then the door opened behind them. A tall man stepped in, wearing a black coat. His face was calm. Too calm. It's over, he said quietly. You can't stop this. Caleb raised his fists. You're the one behind this, the man nodded. And I'll keep going. You think saving a few dogs changes anything? You're wrong, Caleb said. These dogs aren't tools. They're alive. And we're taking them home. The man smiled, then reached toward the panel. Zephyr growled and stepped forward, standing between Caleb and the stranger. The man paused. I wouldn't do that, Caleb warned. For a moment, no one moved. Then the technician hit the final button. Lockdown lifted. The metal doors unlocked. Cages popped open. Dogs barked and howled as they ran into the hallways, some limping, some bounding, but all. The stranger growled. You've ruined years of work. No, Caleb said. We've saved lives. Outside, police cars poured in, called by Evelyn's backup team. The man was arrested. Caleb turned to Zephyr. You led us here, he whispered. You saved them all. Zephyr licked his hand. Echo barked happily beside them. And for the first time, Caleb smiled. They hadn't just found dogs, they had found the truth. And they were just getting started. The sun was just starting to rise when Caleb, Sienna, Evelyn, Echo, and Zephyr left the facility behind. The wind moved gently through the trees. The chaos was over. The masked men were arrested. The dogs were free. But the weight of everything they had seen still sat heavy in their hearts. Zephyr limped beside Caleb, head high, eyes sharp. He didn't whine or slow down. He walked with purpose. Echo trotted ahead, sniffing at every leaf like the world was new. He bounced back to Zephyr every few steps, as if making sure his friend was still there. At the ranger station, the dogs that had been rescued were being cared for by volunteers, vets, and kind strangers. They now had warm blankets, full bowls, and soft beds. Many of them wagged their tails for the first time. A few still hid in corners, unsure how to trust again. Caleb stood in the doorway watching. Sienna walked up beside him holding 2 cups of coffee. You didn't sleep, she said. Neither did you, Caleb replied with a small smile. They sat together on the porch bench. Zephyr lay at Caleb's feet. Echo curled beside him, his head resting on Zephyr's leg. They're bonded, Sienna said quietly. Like brothers. Caleb nodded. They've been through more than most people ever will. Just then, Evelyn stepped out with her phone in hand. She looked excited. I just got word from the state attorney, she said. They've agreed to investigate the entire company. They're shutting down the ridge and all other connected labs. Caleb stood up. They're really doing it? Evelyn smiled, her eyes full of relief. Yes, and the recordings from Zephyr's caller were key evidence. Sienna let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. That's incredible. Evelyn nodded. They want to thank you. Both of you. You made this possible. Caleb looked down at the 2 dogs. We just followed where they led us. Over the next week, life changed at the station. People from all over the state came to adopt the rescued dogs. Some were shy, others were playful, but all of them were finally free. They were no longer just experiments, they were loved. Sienna helped organize everything: interviews, paperwork, training guides. She made sure every adopter understood the trauma the dogs had faced and how to help them heal. Caleb focused on the harder cases: the scared dogs, the injured ones, the ones who needed more time. He worked quietly and patiently, never rushing them. Zephyr never left his side. Echo followed him everywhere too, like a golden shadow. He played with the other dogs, but always came back to Caleb when he was tired or nervous. One evening, Sienna came into the office holding a small envelope. "It's from the National Rescue Alliance," she said. "They want to honor Zephyr and Echo with service dog medals." Caleb chuckled. "They deserve it." They also asked if we'd be willing to speak at their conference next month. "Tell the story?" Caleb raised an eyebrow. "Us? Talk?" Sienna shrugged. "Why not? People need to hear what really happened. They need to know what to watch for. We can't let this happen again." Caleb looked around at the room full of recovering dogs, volunteers, and friends. "You're right," he said. "It's not over." That night, as stars filled the sky, Caleb sat alone outside with Zephyr and Echo. He leaned back on the porch steps, his jacket wrapped around his shoulders. Zephyr lay beside him, ears perked. Echo snoozed with his chin resting on Caleb's boot. "I never thought I'd be here," Caleb said softly. "Not just with dogs, but with a reason." Zephyr shifted, his big head leaning against Caleb's arm. His eyes were calm and full of understanding. "You showed me what loyalty really looks like," Caleb whispered. "You weren't just surviving, you were protecting others." Even while hurt, he reached down and scratched behind Zephyr's ears. "And you," he added, smiling at Echo, "you ran to me. You asked for help, and you trusted me, even though you had every reason not to." Echo stirred, tail thumping once against the porch. "You two changed everything," Caleb said. Inside, Sienna watched through the window. She smiled quietly, then turned off the light to give them peace. A few weeks later, the station received a special visitor. An officer from another town brought a small black and white puppy with bright blue eyes. The pup had been found wandering alone near a bus station. Around his neck was a thin red collar. One word was stitched into the leather: "Rise." Sienna read it out loud and looked at Caleb. Another message. Caleb took a deep breath. Someone else out there, still fighting. Evelyn came in from the back holding a file. "I think we've got work to do." Zephyr stood up slowly, watching the new puppy curiously. Echo barked once and ran over, tail wagging. The little black and white pup looked nervous, but Echo leaned forward and nuzzled him gently. Zephyr came up beside them, tall and strong. The new pup looked at him, then slowly wagged his tiny tail. Caleb stood and grabbed his coat. "All right, team," he said. "Let's see where this collar leads." Later that year, Caleb, Sienna, and Evelyn helped start a new animal rescue unit. They called it the Collar Project. It had one simple goal: follow the clues, save the animals, expose the truth. Zephyr became the team's mascot and protector. He wore a custom collar now, not with tech or trackers, but with a tag that read, "Freedom." Echo became the heart of the group. He greeted every dog that came in. He made them feel safe, just like Zephyr had done for him. Caleb still worked the field. Sienna still ran tech and training. Evelyn spoke to lawmakers, pushing for stronger protections. Together, they changed laws, shut down more illegal labs, and found lost animals who couldn't speak for themselves. And every now and then, a puppy would appear. On a road, by a fence, at a doorstep. Each one wore a collar. Each one had a message. And each one reminded them, they're out there, waiting. Trust the dogs. Follow the truth.